Look closely. Every smile you force, every yes you say when your gut screams no, every hour you spend sculpting an image for the eyes of a world that doesn't even know your name, it adds up. 1,000 silent compromises, 1,000 invisible deaths. You are not living. You are performing. Your life has become a stage built from borrowed desires, a mirror reflecting expectations that were never yours to carry. You are dancing tirelessly for applause you don't even believe in, chasing likes, approval, validation, chasing ghosts. You weren't born this way. You didn't enter this world asking for permission to breathe. You came in raw, unfiltered, hungry for life. You didn't care who was watching. You screamed, you laughed, you reached. You existed in truth. And then the taming began. It didn't happen all at once. It was subtle, gradual. You learned when to shrink, when to smile, when to stay silent, to be accepted. You learned that love was conditional. That approval came with a price. That to be safe, you had to become someone else. A good boy, a nice girl, a team player, a people pleaser, a puppet, and you played your part well, too well, so well, in fact, that you forgot it was an act. You convinced even yourself. And now here you are, adult on the outside, orphaned on the inside, praised, polished, empty. You go through the motions. You succeed. You fit in. You impress. But something in you is screaming. That voice you silenced as a child, it never left. It's buried beneath layers of roles and responsibilities and rituals that were never yours. And it is dying to be heard. Because deep down you know the truth. You have betrayed yourself. In the name of acceptance. In the name of being liked. In the name of survival. But survival is not the same as living. You were not put here to be liked. You were put here to be real, to be true, to be whole. Approval is a leash. Soft, seductive, deadly. And as long as you seek it, you will never be free. Because the moment your worth depends on the outside world, you become a slave. A slave to opinions, a slave to judgment, a slave to whatever trend, ideology, or mask society deems appropriate that day. This is not rebellion, this is resurrection. You must remember who you were before you learned who to be. Because the self you abandoned is still waiting wild, powerful, untamed. But to meet them, you must face the terror of disapproval. You must be willing to disappoint the world to come home to yourself, to walk away from applause if it costs you your soul. This is not selfish. This is sacred. Because every time you abandon your truth for comfort, you reinforce the lie that your value is conditional, that you must earn belonging, that you must wear a mask to deserve love. And that is the root of all suffering. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But most will never claim that privilege because it demands everything. It demands that you stop performing, that you stop pleasing, that you stop playing small. It demands that you wake up, that you tear off the mask, not gently but violently, that you say no to what insults your soul, that you speak truth, even if your voice shakes, that you walk alone, if necessary, until you find those who recognize the real you beneath the costume. You were not born to be liked. You were born to be seen, truly seen, and that can only happen when you stop hiding. You were born to take up space, to disrupt the script, to challenge the systems that thrive on your silence. You were born to live, not to perform, and the moment you choose authenticity over approval, your real life begins. The life that feels like truth, the life that burns, the life that liberates, but only if you're brave enough to be disliked, misunderstood, rejected, because the cost of freedom is the death of your need to be liked. And the reward is the return of your soul. The world doesn't love the real you, not at first. The world loves the version of you it can use. The agreeable you, the predictable you, the you that makes others comfortable, that doesn't challenge the system, that nods along and plays nice. But the real you, the raw, unfiltered, wild, contradictory, sovereign being underneath the mask, the world fears that one. Because the real you can't be controlled. The real you doesn't beg. The real you doesn't follow silently. And so from the moment you begin to step into your authenticity, expect resistance, expect backlash, expect to be called selfish, difficult, too much, not enough, because your truth is a threat to their illusion. Every time you speak what you really think, you're cracking the mirror they've spent their whole lives polishing. Every time you set a boundary, you are reminding them of the ones they've never had the courage to draw. Every time you choose freedom over approval, you are silently exposing the prison they've accepted as home. And they will not thank you for that. They will call you rebellious, arrogant, lost. Let them. You are not here to be understood by the blind. You are here to see, to awaken, to remember. This is the cost of becoming. You will lose people. You will lose comfort. You will lose your place in the hierarchy of the asleep, but you will gain something sacred, yourself. Your voice no longer filtered. Your actions no longer diluted. Your presence no longer outsourced to the expectations of others. That is the soul's revolution, not the fireworks, not the applause, but the quiet moment when you realize, I no longer need anyone's permission to be who I am. And from that moment forward, you are dangerous not because you harm, but because you no longer fear being disliked. You are dangerous because you no longer betray your own knowing to keep the peace. You are dangerous because you've remembered your power. Not the power given to you by titles, status, or validation, but the primal power of self-respect. The power of walking through a world built on illusion and choosing again and again to live in truth. It's not easy, but ease is not the goal. The goal is freedom. And freedom is not granted. It is claimed breath by breath, choice by choice, truth by truth. It is claimed when you stop molding yourself to be digestible. It is claimed when you stop apologizing for taking up space. It is claimed when you speak, act, walk, and love in a way that is aligned with your deepest knowing, even when it costs you everything. Because what you lose is nothing compared to what you gain. When you stop living for approval, you begin to feel, truly feel your own heartbeat, your own rhythm, your own calling, and the emptiness you've carried, the ache that no success, no praise, no relationship could fill. It begins to fade, not because the world changes, but because you do. You stop waiting for them to love you. You start loving yourself, not the idealized self, not the curated self, not the version of you that wins approval. The messy self, the angry self, the weird, wild, wounded self, the self that was there before the world taught you to edit your soul. And when you meet that version, when you embrace them, without conditions, without shame, you become whole. Not perfect, whole. And a whole person is the most revolutionary force on this planet, because the world cannot manipulate a whole person. It cannot guilt you into silence. It cannot shame you into obedience. It cannot seduce you with praise or paralyze you with rejection. A whole person is free, not in theory, but in practice. Not because they have nothing to lose, but because they have nothing left to prove. And when you no longer need to prove, you finally begin to create, not to impress, but to express, not to perform, but to participate fully, fiercely, and without filter in the sacred act of being alive. This is what you were born for, not for applause, but for alignment, not for conformity, but for contribution, not to be accepted, but to be authentic. But let me be clear, authenticity has a cost. You will lose the people who loved your mask. You will lose the comfort of blending in. You will lose the fake peace that comes from being agreeable. And in its place, you will gain solitude, stillness, self-respect. You will walk into rooms that no longer shrink. You will sit at tables and no longer swallow your voice. You will look into the mirror and no longer see a stranger mimicking someone else's dream. That is the quiet victory. That is the real wealth. Not the currency of likes and followers, but the currency of inner truth. Because in the final hour, when the noise fades and the stage is gone, and all that remains is the silence of your soul, only one question will matter. Did I live my life or someone else's? And if the answer is someone else's, you will feel it not as guilt, but as grief. The grief of a voice never spoken. The grief of a truth never lived. The grief of a life spent earning approval while your own essence went unloved, unnoticed, untouched. But if the answer is mine, even if you stumbled, even if you fell, even if you were misunderstood, you will die a free person. And that is everything. That is victory. Because the goal is not to be liked. The goal is not to be safe. The goal is not to be seen as good. The goal is to be free, to burn every false layer until only truth remains, to live in a way that demands your own respect, to know that you stood in the fire of rejection and still chose yourself, not out of ego, but out of reverence. Reverence for the sacredness of your voice, reverence for the truth of your path, reverence for the one life you were given, not to mimic, not to perform, but to embody. This is your life, not theirs. This is your fire, not their comfort. This is your truth, and it is time to live it. You were never meant to be a replica. You were never meant to be a hollow echo of someone else's desires. You were meant to be a singularity, unrepeated, unreplicable, ungovernable by the shallow laws of approval. But the world is relentless in its design. It trains you to conform with 1,000 subtle shames. Don't be too loud. Don't be too proud. Don't make others uncomfortable with your truth. And slowly, like water carving stone, your edges wear down. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Until one day, you wake up and realize you've become a ghost in your own body, smiling without joy, speaking without conviction, living without life. And that's when the real war begins. Not against others, but against the image of yourself you've come to worship, the curated self, the marketable self, the digestible self. That false god has to die, because as long as you serve it, you will live in chains. You will build your life in the prison of perception cell by cell, like bricks of performance, and call it success. You wear the praise of others like armor, not realizing it's also your cage. To escape, you must renounce the throne of their approval. You must dethrone the child within you who still believes love must be earned by sacrifice. You must be willing to walk into exile, to be outcast, misunderstood, even hated for the crime of being fully alive. But know this, every prophet was first a heretic. Every healer was first a rule breaker. Every soul that ever shook the world first had to break free from it. That is the price of liberation. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost your comfort. It will cost your reputation. It may even cost relationships built on who you used to be. But what you gain? You gain peace. Not the fragile peace of being accepted, but the unshakable peace of being true. You gain clarity, the kind that comes when the fog of external expectation lifts and you finally see your path raw and radiant and yours. You gain power not over others, but over yourself. The power to say no, the power to walk away, the power to be without explanation or excuse. And most of all, you gain your life back. Not a life designed by committee, not a life approved by the crowd, but a life that is a declaration, a rebellion, a prayer. Every breath a refusal to perform. Every step a return to what is real. This is what they will never teach you, that your wholeness is a threat, that your freedom is offensive, that your authenticity, your boundaries, your refusal to conform terrifies those still in chains. But let your light provoke their shadows. Let your voice disrupt their programming. Let your existence be the fire that wakes the sleeping. You were not born to be palatable. You were born to be powerful. And true power is never granted. It is claimed with blood, with grief, with courage. And the only permission you ever needed was your own. So take it. Take your permission. Take your truth. Take your life. And never again ask anyone to approve what your soul already knows is sacred. The moment you stop asking, the moment you stop waiting, something irreversible awakens. You begin to walk differently. Not faster, not louder, just truer. There's a gravity to it. A silence that speaks louder than noise. A presence that no longer needs explanation. You're no longer seeking the spotlight because you've become the flame. You're no longer molding yourself to fit into their comfort because you've outgrown their rules. You're no longer exhausting yourself to be seen because you finally see yourself. And when you see yourself, when you truly see, without judgment, without distortion, you become impossible to manipulate because they can't sell you what you don't crave. They can't control you when your worth isn't outsourced. They can't shame you when you've reconciled with your shadow. This is the quiet revolution of reclaiming your sovereignty. It doesn't come with applause. It comes with solitude. It comes with loss. But in that loss, something ancient returns. The self, capital S, the one Jung spoke of. The one that is beyond persona, beyond role, beyond approval. The self that was buried beneath layers of conditioning, now rising like a lion from sleep. You'll begin to notice it in the smallest moments. The way you say no without guilt. The way you hold your truth without shaking. The way you stop explaining your boundaries to people who have no business crossing them. And most of all, the way you stop betraying yourself to belong. Because now you belong to something deeper. Not a tribe, not an image, not a performance. You belong to truth. And that belonging cannot be broken. Not by rejection, not by loneliness, not by the discomfort of walking a path few dare to tread. It is a loyalty to your essence. And once you taste it, you will never again settle for approval that demands your silence. You will never again trade authenticity for acceptance. You will never again shrink yourself to make others feel safe in their illusions. Because you finally understand your life is not a negotiation. It is a declaration that says, I am not here to be tolerated. I'm not here to be admired. I am here to be whole, to be real, to be free. And freedom is never polite. It disrupts, it challenges, it liberates, even when it offends, especially when it offends, because the world doesn't change through comfort. It changes through fire. And when you burn the false self, the one built for approval, you become that fire. Not to destroy, but to illuminate, to awaken, to remind others not with your words, but with your walk, that they too were born for more than applause. They were born for truth. They were born for freedom. They were born for themselves. And maybe, just maybe, your courage to live unapproved will be the permission someone else needs to do the same. Maybe your flame will light theirs. And together, we won't just survive this world, we will remake it. One liberated soul at a time. There will come a moment, not loud, not public, when you find yourself standing alone in the silence. No audience, no echo, just you. And in that silence, you will feel something you haven't felt in years. Peace. Not the kind handed to you by compliments or temporary validation, but the kind born from finally being whole in your own skin. The kind that wraps itself around your spine and makes you unshakable. That's when you'll know you are no longer a product of your environment. You are no longer a prisoner of their opinions. You are no longer living for them. You are living with you, fully, unapologetically, fiercely. And when you reach that place, when you've buried the illusion and raised the truth, the world can no longer seduce you. Because you're not playing the game anymore. You're not playing to win. You're playing to wake up. You're not here for status. You're not here for applause. You're here for alignment. That word alignment, it changes everything. Because aligned people don't chase. They attract through gravity. They don't beg to be seen. They become so visible in their truth, the world can't look away. You don't need to scream your worth when you're walking in it. And that's what you do now. You walk not ahead of others, not behind them, but beside your truth. And when people see that, it stirs something ancient in them. Not envy, remembrance. Not comparison, recognition. They see in you what they buried in themselves. And you become more than a person, you become a portal. A portal back to the real, the raw, the sacred, the self that existed before the world taught them how to hide. And in that way, simply by living your truth, you give others permission to meet their own. But you don't live for that. You live for you, not to rebel, not to prove, not to impress, but because the deepest act of worship is to become fully yourself. This is not ego. This is soul, because your truth is your altar. Your breath is your prayer. And your life, lived authentically, fiercely, freely, is the most powerful offering you will ever give to the world. So let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them leave. You did not come here to be liked. You came here to live. Fully, deeply, uncompromisingly. And from this day forward, you will. And now, when every mask has fallen, when every applause has lost its meaning, when you stand alone in the sacred silence of your own being, you will understand. You never needed to be accepted. You never needed to be loved with conditions. You never needed to be validated to feel worthy. Because finally, you have come home. Not to a place, but to yourself. The real you. The wild, imperfect, untamed, radiant you, who has always been waiting to live without apology. You no longer ask for permission to exist. You no longer compromise to be loved. You no longer live like a servant and begin living like a sovereign soul. And the world, it cannot hold you anymore. It may not understand you. It may resist you, but it no longer defines you. Because once you choose truth over approval, soul over safety, authenticity over aesthetics, you no longer belong to the old world. You are the storm. You are the fire. You are the awakening. And the world, if it dares to listen, will be changed. Not because you shouted, but because you lived fully, boldly, unapologetically. You no longer live to please. You live to illuminate. You live to remind every buried soul. They too can return. They too can remove the mask. They too can live a life not needing to be approved, only needing to be true. And if even one person chooses truth, because you chose truth, then you did not live just for yourself. You lit the way. And that is eternal freedom.